CNN anchor mocks Bernie Sanders for private jet on anti-Trump tour. She said, "Can you fight the billionaires from Coach?" That's surprising that CNN, Abby Phillips, the Cape Crusader for the Democrats, is actually speaking out against Bernie Sanders' hypocrisy for once. So I got to give credit when credit is due, because think about it. Bernie Sanders and AOC, these are the two people that try to push the Green New Deal. You know, the Green New Deal where they said that you can't fly on planes. They're the ones that fly on private jets around the country to so-called fight the oligarchy, and but they don't want you to be able to fly. And we know that private jets spew out more CO2 than any other process. If you believe that CO2 causes global warming, that's a whole nother debate. But for sake of argument, let's say we do believe in that. So if you do believe in that, why are you jet setting around the country on a private jet? And you are the one that's telling people they don't need to no longer fly. I mean, the hypocrisy abounds. And I'm shocked. I'm surprised that Abby Phillip actually called him out on it. So we're gonna play the clip. We're going to talk about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. And that's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from Mediaite by way of MSN. And they report that CNN anchor Abby Phillip roasted Senator Bernie Sanders for his indignant response when Fox News anchor Bret Baier challenged him over his use of a private jet on his anti-Trump fighting oligarchy tour. On this week's edition of CNN Saturday Morning Table for 5, Phillip was joined by Chuck Todd, Ashley Allison, Josh Rogan, and Malik Abdul. Phillip devoted an entire segment to mocking Sanders over his answer, introducing the discussion by asking that eternal question: can you fight the billionaires from Coach? Again, I am shocked that they even took this route. But let's get right to this shocking clip here. Here we go.
Can you fight the billionaires from Coach? The answer is apparently no from Bernie Sanders, who's getting heat for flying private jets to and from his Fighting the Oligarchs rally with AOC. Check out this explanation.
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No. It doesn't.
See, hold on. Let me stop here for a second. Donald Trump is not the one that's saying talking about global warming. He's not the one that pushed forth the Green New Deal. He's not the one that don't believe Americans shouldn't be flying unless you're special. You're special because you are so-called fighting the oligarchy. That makes you special. That makes you able to jet set around the country in a private jet, Mr. Fight the Oligarchy. How could he not see the hypocrisy here? Let me rewind it some. Here we go.
AOC, check out this explanation.
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No. It doesn't. But he's also
and are you campaigning, Bernie? Are you saying that you're campaigning, Bernie Sanders? Is that what it is? Are you campaigning?
not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do three or four or five rally mode at National Airport.
No. It doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way.
Oh, God forbid he has to wait in line at an airport. He's special. How can he not see this?
You can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
You're not campaigning.
According to the FEC, the Sanders campaign committee has spent more than $200,000 on his private jets just in the last quarter. That is actually quite a lot of money. I have to say this. My very first story out of Washington for Politico was about a politician, Chuck Schumer, flying on private jets. And I am.
Of course, you work for Politico. Of course she worked for Politico. That's where she comes from. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Quite a lot of money. I have to say this. My very first story out of Washington for Politico was about a politician, Chuck Schumer, flying on private jets, and I am here today to tell the tale, but which is not saying a lot for politicians. I mean, Chuck, tell me what the moment was in that answer that you thought, oh, this is going wrong.
The United thing, because we all you're a man of the people. How dare I have to be with the people? Right. That's
Right.
what. Look, it's a cheap question. It's a
Great. It's not a cheap question. How he said, oh my gosh. He make a great point, and then he try to cape for them. It wasn't a cheap question. People was asking this. That's why he asked. I asked the same question. A lot of people asked that same question and wanted to know his answer to that question. It's not a cheap question.
Oh, this is going wrong.
The United thing, because we all you're a man of the people. How dare I have to be with the people? Right. That's what. Look, it's a cheap question. It's a smart alecky question. So it wasn't a serious question. It was kind of trolly. But his answer was terrible. You can't defend this answer. Hey, buddy, we all have to stand in line. We all have to do this. Even if you have 1K privileges, you're still standing in line. You still have to do this. You got to go through security.
It definitely came across as I'm not going to stand
Let
in
them
this
eat
line
cake.
with
And
peons.
did you hear him? He mentioned
Let them
Trump.
eat
Well,
cake.
I'll remind him, Donald Trump, doesn't he own his plane? That is much different than Bernie Sanders going around on the plane. I think that this is something very...
Is that the best he can do? Doesn't Donald Trump own a plane? Yeah. Again, Donald Trump is not the one talking about global warming and people shouldn't be flying on planes, and he's flying around on private jets. He's not the hypocrite here. What is he talking about? What does Donald Trump owning the plane has to do with Bernie Sanders' answer? Absolutely nothing.
Donald Trump, and the point was right that Brett made, is that he fights against the oligarchy and the rich. He wants to tax all of the rich. And a similar thing to even Bill Gates, who also flies around on his private plane, and he has these concerns about the environment. I think many people look at this and say, well, you're a hypocrite. And I'll say to everybody at home, whether it's a president, whether it's Bernie, vice president, any politician will love to ride on a private plane, and they'll probably do it until they can't stop doing it.
No one's asked the question, what's the carbon footprint of this private jet?
I mean, private jets have a very bad carbon footprint.
That's actually why
Democrats are the party of that. They have those
But I don't think. I don't think he's wrong though. That. Yeah, I mean, he's campaigning, right?
Yes.
He's going from rally to rally. I've covered a lot of campaigns. Everybody flies private, including the press, because you cannot make those stops commercial. But it was how the answer came out that I think made it an issue.
This is what I have said a long time, is that I don't actually have a problem with people being billionaires. It's the type of billionaire you are. I want to, that's the American dream, to start out in middle class and go up the economic ladder. I think when you're saying there should be no billionaires, well, billionaires fly on private jets. That is where I understand what he was saying is it's a means to end because he has to get a lot of places. But the whole story arc is either you fly what is
Or make a schedule that allows you to fly
and don't hit as many places as once,
Yeah.
or don't knock the billionaires.
I could argue the symbolism of going through. I'm old enough to remember John McCain grabbing his suitcase on his own, going and proving, hey, I'm not wasting money.
Yeah.
Hypocrites. The Democrat Party is the hypocrite party. It's on full display. You can't defend it, even though CNN tried to defend it a little bit. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave y'all comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.